Welcome to the Liquidity Event, a show about all things personal finance with a laser focus on taxes, financial independence, and equity compensation. Hosted by AJ and Shane of Brooklyn FI, each episode will focus on a personal finance topic, some driven by news headlines and sometimes driven by listener questions. And sometimes you'll just get two money nerds rambling about what they think is interesting. Just a quick note before we get started, this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered tax or investment advice.
Hello, and welcome to the Liquidity Event. We're your hosts, AJ.
And Shane.
This is episode 114, being recorded on August 13th, airing on August 16th. A quick reminder to you listeners, we will answer your questions on the pod. If you leave us a message, you can disguise your voice, use a fake name if you're shy. The link is memo.fm/the liquidity event. Today's show, we got a bunch of depressing stuff for you. We've got a man who saved his entire life only for his currency to collapse. We've got tragedy in the Hamptons, and we've got tragedy in Puerto Rico. So we've got tragedy all over the place. How you doing, Shane?
Great. But one man's tragedy is another man's opportunity. Didn't you just say, you sent me a Delta screenshot yesterday of cheap flights to Japan?
I did.
I forgot to capitalize on that. What are we doing? Are we going?
75,000 points. Just a quick pop over to Japan.
What's the conversion? Is that the same conversion rate as the yen to the US dollar?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. 1 million yen is worth 75,000 Delta points right now.
Currency conversion is the final boss of thinking on your feet when it comes. It's really embarrassing when you don't do the conversion rates right as like you can't do mental math as a CPA in front of your friends because you mess it up one time, or as an accountant or financial planner.
Yeah.
Well, they're just aren't you a CPA?
I messed up a mental math equation in front of a client once. They were very gracious about it, but it was something to do with like, well, if you take 10% of whatever, that's $2,500, and they're like, don't you mean $25,000? And I was like,
it's always a zero.
Calculators, folks.
It's never like you're calculating the net present value of an investment returning 9% of the next 35 years. Yeah, it's always like 10% of $10,000 is $1,000 bucks. And they're like,
totally.
Something like that.
Maybe that's why I'm such a big tipper, because I can't fathom doing 18%. I just default to 10% times 2.
10% times 2? Yeah.
Speaking of tipping,
I wrote math once. I do this all the time. Sorry. Whenever I'll do like the tip that I want to put, and then I'm not doing the damn arithmetic, so I just put math. And my friend was like, on the actual total. And my friend was like, why don't you do the calculation? You're a CPA. And I'm like, that's why I do not do the calculation, my guy. Y'all figure it out. Like all the waitress has to do is put the tip in, the tip number. Like, unless she's scamming me, which is, we're going to talk about scams on the episode today.
But speaking of tipping, this fellow in Japan was definitely not tipping anyone because he was only eating microwave white rice, a very little bit of protein and seasoning for a couple decades. We have heard examples of folks who are interested in the FIRE movement. That's financially independent, retire early. This fellow in Japan got a bit of attention for his extreme commitment to trying to retire early, working a salary job, living in the company dormitory, basically living like a student and or prisoner, which he was sort of joking about.
Yes.
And basically saved up the equivalent of like $800,000 to retire early, which unfortunately was timed with the collapse of the yen. So his retirement nest egg, sadly, is not enough to sustain his even meager lifestyle, which really sucks. This is a sad story. I didn't like this. I was reading it and I was like, okay, cool, rice and beans, or the Japanese equivalent of rice and beans, save money, ruin your life for 15 years so you can leave work earlier, only to be thwarted by forces well beyond his control.
So wait, this is an article from Must Share News is the name of this publication. Yeah, I don't know, it probably came from Reddit, but first of all, great name for a website. Must Share News.
MS News, yeah.
MSC. Oh, also, yeah, MS News. And then apparently this guy was making $44K in US dollars per year, and he wanted to save up 870K. Well, his target was 100 million yen, which is a funny number, like 100 million. That's so many zeros.
So much zeros.
The yen, come on, guys. Just Let's do the thing where we cut a bunch of zeros off our currency already. Going to Japan is so confusing. It's like, oh yeah, that'll be 12,000 yen. You're like, okay, let me get my calculator out here. But yeah, I guess he had a nickname, the man who will definitely resign, which I'm sure is a funny translation.
Yeah, there's definitely some translations going on here from Japanese
something lost in
English.
translation.
A little choppy here.
There's some nuance in that. So this guy ate white rice for 20 years.
Yeah. And now he's 45 and he can sort of retire, but probably has to go back to work because currency collapsed.
But how does that matter to the yen? Like, how does that matter to him? Like, for us, it's cheaper to go to Japan now, and we're going.
Purchasing power.
What, when he travels to the States? I thought this guy was eating white rice in a dorm and like
Right, I guess
in
the price
Japan.
Of rice changed so dramatically.
Yeah, so did his. Yeah. Anyway, so you're not the type of person to do this, AJ.
I used to be. I used to be this type of person. I like challenging myself to know that I could do this if I had to. I like knowing that. Actually, my husband and I talk about this all the time, like lifestyle creep and like how our lives have gotten expensive. But in a pinch, like we could just scale back dramatically and like we could check in with each other all the time. Like, hey, just checking. Like, we're good. Like, we could like have this all go away and like we'd be fine. We could start over. Like, that's an important like presence to be, I think, as your lifestyle inflates. That you could always go back.
Proposal for you. Let's put our money where our mouth is. I think we were just talking about what the loser of our Brooklyn F5 fantasy football team has to do. If you lose, I need you to move into my apartment.
No.
you and Nabila are gonna move in to the apartment I'm currently living in for a year. And
I thought you were gonna say I've eaten rice and beans. I was like, no problem. I'm gonna get my Rancho Gordo beans.
As a person with a mortgage, I don't think you have a choice. Unfortunately, I don't think you could. I guess you could rent the place out and then move into a smaller apartment. I was talking to my buddy the other day. Apparently in New York City, he has money, but he was like, hey, I'm looking for a new place. I'm like, what's your budget? He's like, oh, it's about $8,500 a month. It's like, holy shit, yep. $8,500 a month to rent. Speaking of this, we can transition to the article about the Instagram family, because there's a great quote about how much they're paying in rent at one point. Anyone that's
$7,000.
No, don't take the come on. Stealing the thunder.
Sorry, yes. Backing up to your buddy for a second.
Sure.
Rents are crazy, right? Like $8,500, like that. Yes, to you and I, that sounds like an insane amount of money. Because the last time I was looking for a rented apartment was pre-COVID or during COVID, when you could get a relatively large 2 to 3 bedroom apartment in a centrally located Brooklyn neighborhood for $5,000 a month in rent, and now that's like, forget it. Like you're lucky to get a 1 bedroom somewhere for $5,000. Like rents have exploded post pandemic.
Yeah,
which brings us to the rent versus buy debate, which is still raging. Still no right answer on that one.
Still raging. There's still not enough supply. We're not converting the commercial units to retail units, or what do you call them, residential units, which is another part of that story that we're going to see, the sad story of a suicide in the Hamptons. But yeah, I guess I've never paid, I think, more than $2,700 a month in rent ever. But my buddy that's looking for $8,100, he's an investment banker married to a Googler. So everything's relative, baby.
So they've got the cash flow for it.
I love the posts that go like hit CNN.com. It's like, me and my spouse are making $500K per year. Here's where it all goes in New York City. We feel like we're living impoverished. Yeah. And it's always like $12,000 a month for daycare. Like, what? I mean,
that's what it costs. Well, that's the thing. Yeah. But that's the reality. It's like, if you have 2 people working high-powered jobs, like, they can't pick up the kids from school. Like, they have to employ someone to do that. So, like, that's the trade-off, you know? Like, that is the reality for a lot of people, especially in cities like New York and LA. Like, it's unaffordable.
I think that's a reality people set for themselves. I had my manager at my old restaurant, and him and his spouse were definitely making probably $120 together with kids. And we're making it work. You can make it work. It's definitely possible, but lifestyle inflation comes at you. I mean, this is what we're going to talk about in this episode.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about lifestyle inflation.
Yeah.
Tell us about this article.
Well, yeah, this article, where did this article come from? Oh, this is the Times article. Oh, this is a dark one. I was posting this one. I have notes here. I was like laughing along to this, but the headline is how an Instagram perfect life in the Hamptons ended in tragedy. And any frequent listener to the podcast will know that I don't have the most sympathy for the wealthiest of our country or of the world. But this is a dark story of a seemingly perfect couple that ends in tragedy when the husband kills himself after getting too far into debts. What are their names here? The Gilded Age of New York.
And Brandon Miller.
Yeah. Really dark. I mean, long story short, he went to Brown. She went to a nice school. They got married in their mid-20s. He inherits a real estate empire from his father. Really, he's been working at that company for his firm for a while. Unfortunately, his father died unexpectedly, and lawsuits immediately start pouring in related to unpaid debts, which there's always lawsuits in real estate, right? Like, I didn't read that as he didn't pay his debts. I read that as, well, the guy that owns the company is now dead. Let's just go ahead and file a protective lawsuit to make sure that we get we got to get it on the books.
Yeah, for sure.
But then, the debts start flowing in. The son, is taking over this company as a young man. Lawsuits start flying in. And they specialize in commercial real estate. And then the pandemic happens, which devastated commercial real estate space. And he is suddenly in over his head.
Yep.
And somebody that's not aware of somebody that's in over his head is his lovely wife, who has an Instagram account whose sole intent is to show off their lavish lifestyle, including their boat, which has a fantastic name, Miller Time. Their last names are Miller. Miller Time for a boat is so fun.
I did enjoy that detail. Yeah, this is a story about getting in over your head and just like not having frank conversations with your partner about money at the end of the day. And
is that your take on this?
Yeah, I read between the lines a little bit, and I think that he and her lawyers are probably protecting her a little bit here and saying that she had no idea, right? That's the through line throughout the article, is that she had no idea this is happening, no idea. You have 2 kids, you live together, chances are you probably would pick up on the extreme financial and emotional stress your partner is going through. So I don't necessarily buy that she had no idea. I agree with her lawyers recommending that she claim innocent spouse relief, basically, and say I had no idea. She's obviously reeling from this tragedy. So
that was a throwback. Innocent spouse relief. That's on the EA exam. That one's stuck in your head from back in 2019, I guess.
It did. Yeah. That's a thing, right? We could talk about that a little bit. Like, if your spouse, commits tax fraud, doesn't report earnings, what have you, and let's say, for example, they pass away and the IRS comes after you and your spouse because you filed a single tax return as a married couple and says, hey, your spouse had $1 million of unreported income. By the way, you owe those taxes because your name was on the tax return. You can say, I had no idea that they were doing that. I'm an innocent spouse. You can't hold me responsible for my partner's illegal activities.
Yeah. You're reminding me of one of my saddest attempts at rescuing a spouse ever, when she hadn't worked for 30 years and he handled all the finances, and he retires and was receiving a pension, but there wasn't enough withholding on the pension and he gambles all the money away. Oh. They both signed the tax returns, and after he dies, just like 3 years after retiring, it turns out they owe like $60,000 to the IRS, and the pension is lower now, and she's never had a job ever, and now she has to go to work because I couldn't get her off on innocent spouse relief because supposedly she benefited from the use of the funds.
Yeah.
They couldn't prove that she wasn't gambling with him or what have you, so she's on the hook.
Awful.
So she had to get a job at like 62 in New York City, moving. Crazy story, but sad. In this case, she... this is a sophisticated woman. Like, she's married to a guy that went to Brown. He's got an international commercial real estate developing firm. She's got, a big part of this.
Running a biz. I think the part of the story here is that the question is whether she's running a business or she was just showing, she was like basically spending money was her business. Like, she was showing Like, like I'm gonna throw this amazing party. Like she had 80,000 followers. It wasn't necessarily like when I think of an influencer, I think of someone who is entire lifestyle is paid for by brands. So like, oh, I'm an influencer. I'm gonna go to the Hilton Garden Inn in downtown Newark, New Jersey. Like, isn't this such a cool place to go? Isn't Newark so cool? Like, sponsored by the city of Newark, right? Whereas I think what was happening here is she was just spending the money, and they weren't necessarily comped parties or comped Chanel bags for promotion. It was just she was spending the family money and acting like it was a business, and it wasn't. There was no revenue being generated.
That is the worst type of influencer, by the way. I think I was reading this, and I think there's
also,
three types.
City of downtown Newark. If you're interested, I'm available.
They're frequent listeners to the pod. They're one of our 6 listeners. I think there's 3 types. I think there's someone that works in. Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
this isn't true.
Hierarchy.
This isn't true.
Mason's hierarchy of influencers. Here we go.
One is I have a niche that I'm good at explaining to other people, like Kyla Scan, and in terms of like the economy, the young economist girl. There's all kinds of people like makeup tutorials, stuff like that. And that's an old one, like old YouTube stuff.
That's useful.
Then there is the useful niche, and then there is the
car reviews. I've been on car TikTok. Deep in car TikTok. Yeah.
Let's go. There's even tax TikTok where they debunk the gurus. I love those. The Grant Cardone's an idiot. These aren't actual tax advice. If I was going to do one, it would be like that, which is super fun because you just shit on idiots all day, which I love to do. And then second is I'm hot. I'm extremely hot.
Which is people. Yeah.
Professional hot people. Yep. And they're always at a resort. And they always look like they haven't ever had a drop of alcohol in their entire life. And they have an 8-pack if they're dudes. If they're women, they're shaped a certain way, and they're never wearing very much clothing. The male gaze and the female gaze.
The paid appearance type. Like, I'm just going to be a hot person in said location, downtown Newark or the Bahamas or whatever, and I might be paid to be here, even just to sit here.
I may have an above-average IQ, but watchers are not. Even if I do, I'm not using it for these posts. And it's always at a resort, and they're always comped, and it's like, come with me on this journey to this place.
Okay, so we got niche, professional hot person. What's the third one?
The third one is I have so much money and so much free time. My version of self-actualization is not going and being of service to the world. It is spending all my money on the internet and collecting viewers that way, which has to be the worst version of an influencer, unfortunately, right? I mean, I'm talking about pure influencers here. Like Kanye West is not an influencer, and Kim Kardashian, I would argue, at this point, is no longer an influencer. Has a diversified portfolio of things that she does, but they are influencers in that, like when Kanye posts fly shit, like that's just a part of his life, and Drake and like people that are famous for other reasons. I'm not including them here, but this person in this episode has this Instagram that is called Mama and Tata, and all it is her keeping up with the Joneses out in the Hamptons.
Yeah,
like during
a lot of keeping up with the Joneses. Yeah,
social season, and it's just like, all right, so everyone here has money, everyone here has fame, or not fame. Everyone here has a bit of power, has a ton of money. What are the last things? More power or more fame, right? Yeah. And like social status via like they have the boat, they have the house. What's next?
Right. I mean,
spend it on Instagram.
Yeah, you're right. It is keeping up with the Joneses, and at a certain point, in order, this is like a house of cards that was like about to collapse. So the husband is borrowing money left and right. He's leveraging these properties. He's bringing on new deals, and just creates this kind of like web of debt that he's drowning in, and they're like, oh shit, we got to sell the house. They got to sell their Tribeca penthouse, and so they quote unquote downsize, right, to a rental on the Upper East Side. Ugh, gross. Upper East Side, ew. And they're spending $47,000 a month in rent, and they also rent a bunch of furniture. This part was wild to me. I mean, look, this is a world that we are not a part of, right? And I'm sure it's a lovely world to exist in, but all I saw from this article was that money does not equal happiness, and the more money you have, you are always going to be wanting more, and you just have to keep feeding the beast, right? It's like a coal-powered engine. Like the train, once the train leaves the station, you got to keep making more money and shoveling more coal in that fire to pay for the boat, the Hamptons house, the Tribeca apartment, the Aspen house. Like it never ends. I'm going. I think Japanese rice guy is happier in the long run.
There's some. Oh yeah, yeah, perhaps. Yeah, perhaps he's happier. He's experienced some pain. He's accustomed to the pain. He's used to living a lower lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? You know what's gonna make that dude really fucking happy? A burger and French fries. Spending $10 on a burger and French fries is like, wow, what a great week I had. You know, whereas as this family, unfortunately, like, when is it enough? You know?
This article reminds me of whenever we talk about gentrification in Mexico City, a lot of the Mexicans like to call white people immigrants. We're going to talk about the gringo go home thing if we have time, and Puerto Rico as well. And then, but like when essentially they get upset because when Mexicans go to America, they're called immigrants. But when white people come to Mexico, they're called expats. And those words
Same
have
shit.
different connotations.
Yeah. Right.
And like these two people were living ghetto fabulous. They were renting furniture. The only other people I know that rent furniture are real estate agents and people that like they don't know how to manage their money.
Right. Or like temporary corporate housing or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, $120,000 a year to rent. I just want to know what kind of furniture.
Furniture. I'm sure it looked like Donald
awesome.
Trump's gilded
the gold
shitholes.
Oh my God.
Anyway, unfortunately,
this story ends in like horrible tragedy. The guy kills himself, and this woman. Can we talk about suicide for a second? First of all, I was Googling insurance policies and suicide clauses, and shout out to Google and whatever legislation got passed, because I could not even get to my results before something flashed up on Google that was like, because I was Googling suicide, if you're having suicidal thoughts, call this number. Here's some suggested text to a friend if you're having these thoughts. And I was like, oh, wow, a positive thing that has come out of Google having all of our information. Like, it knew I was searching suicide. If it was for research for this podcast, not because I'm actually having those thoughts, but I thought that was nice. That if you were Googling that, you would be potentially led away from making that decision. But
yes.
anyway.
Tech is good now. Section 230 be damned.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm good. No loss. I'm good. But I was interested in it because the article mentions, like, in his suicide note to her, he said, well, I've taken care of you because we have life insurance policies worth $15 million. And I remembered from CFP school that there are often suicide clauses in life insurance policies. And usually there's a waiting period. So if you take out a life insurance policy on yourself, intending to kill yourself but want your family to benefit, you usually have to wait 2 years, and sometimes longer. So if you kill yourself within that 2-year window after buying the policy, that policy won't pay out. So I don't know. I was just wondering if he had waited 2 years or not. That was not.
Yeah, I did not. I thought, yeah, that's a dark way to take. It's a dark thing to look at. Yeah, I hear you. I guess at the end of his life, because all the money was being spent out the door, he was like borrowing money for like $1,000 at a time. Yeah. And this is a guy that sold his Tribeca loft for $9 million just a few years earlier. Yeah. And then apparently when his wife went on a European vacation to the Amalfi Coast, that's when he killed himself. But for those wondering, he did the non-painful car exhaust with the Porsche Carrera in the garage of the lovely home. How did you feel about the separation of duties aspect of this? Like, circling back to that, there's this article in here. She had visited his office only once. And she met his business partner just 3 times, including most recently beside her husband's grave. Yeah. This sounds...
I mean, that's kind of where we started this conversation. I don't like this extreme separation of duties. Husband goes out and makes money, wife handles the house, and in this case, spends the money, right? Typically, we see more of a separation of duties where, a wife is given, or not a wife, the person staying home and handling the affairs of the house and the kids is given a stipend and say, here's what we have to work with, make it happen. In this case, it didn't seem like there was a budget of any kind. According to this, she had no idea. She never asked. Where's the money coming from? She never thought never did a little quick calculation in her mind of how much are we spending each month? She had no idea how much the house was worth. Was she so sheltered from the finances? She doesn't seem like a stupid person, right? That's the missing piece here, right? This doesn't seem like someone who didn't know what was going on. Grew up in the Hamptons. Sad. It's just, I don't know. I think it's an
I hope
addiction.
she gets that 15 million.
It's an addiction to excess, right? Once you're on the hamster wheel of trying to keep up with your friends, how do you get off?
Well, they probably don't see it as excess. Yeah, when you've got dozens of people around you that are doing the same thing.
Yeah, and probably have a bigger house and more boats and more Chanel purses.
It reminds me of the happiness studies that show that as long as you have more money than your friends, you're happy. That's one of the main drivers of happiness. Is as long as you have more money than your close friends. I don't know if it's superiority, but it's like, comparison is the thief of joy, as Theodore Roosevelt said. So if you're constantly doing this, unfortunately, I feel like it could lead to a dark, dark place.
Totally.
Also, fuck his friends.
What?
No, sorry. Let's segue out of here. Let's get the hell out of here.
Let's go to Puerto Rico. Another dark place. A lovely, beautiful place. Love Puerto Rico. But a dark place, nonetheless. Crypto bro moves to Puerto Rico, avoids taxes, promises the world by investing in the local community, and turns out he's a douchebag with empty promises. Is that how we can summarize this article? I didn't read the whole thing.
Yeah, this is kind of a hit piece. I kind of added this one at the end because I was talking about how sometimes we get clients that come in and they want to talk about crypto, but they only want to talk about the intricacies of their coin or stuff like that. And I'm like, bro, it does not matter what's going on with your specific coin. It's going to be taxed as a capital gain, and you need to you need to divest it. I've had multiple dudes worth over 25 million. I'm on discovery calls with, and they're like late 20s that are not interested in talking about anything except increasing their investment into the coins. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we have this guy. I don't know what to call this guy. I'll call him Walking Burning Man. And he's worth between 700 million and $1 billion. Another
in Tether, not in USD, correct? Worth is a relative term here.
Who the fuck knows? Like one day it's worth this, another day it's worth that. The taxation's weird, and then they're going to get FTX'd at some point. Anyway, so one estimate was between 700 and $1 billion. He was also a child actor. He was on Mighty Ducks.
Mighty Ducks. Yeah, Mighty Ducks. I saw that. Love that. Went to his IMDb. Didn't see much else.
What's this guy's name again? Brock?
Brock.
Yeah, so we got a child actor. He gets involved in coin when he's young. There's not like a lot of dudes that go to like traditional routes. There's not like a lot of accounting people that are in the early stages of crypto. They always come from the strangest backgrounds.
Because the accounting world is so exciting. I love the accounting. I'm not being sarcastic. Like really, anyway, you want to hang out with like good people who are like trying to make a difference in people's lives, like become an accountant. Sure. And you want to make a lot of money, right? Like people don't go into accounting to be altruistic, but by nature of the profession, like it ends up being like you're actually helping people. You're helping people create jobs. You're helping small businesses not fail. You're helping people avoid not jail time, but penalties and taxation. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Yeah, there's a ton of fantastic people. No, that's my soapbox too. When I talk to accountants, I love accountants. But yeah, this is The Unraveling of a Crypto Dream is the name of the article in the Times. And this guy's name is Brock Pierce, and he moved to Puerto Rico because, and I looked at this for myself, actually. I was just curious. I'm always obsessed with complicated ways, like with gaming the system, essentially. I think some types of people are obsessed with gaming the system, and I'm one of those people. Right.
And also in the service of like, I have unlimited opportunities. It's never been easier in the history of the world to go live in a different country, right? And go experience a different culture and potentially escape the, as we saw in the last article, like throttling taxation of a place like New York City.
Right.
Like, I get it.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about Puerto Rico is that it's a territory, but like it's a part of the United States. And then it's strangely enough, the only place in the world where you can reduce your federal tax rate. Like even living in Mexico, there's not really any benefits to that. Like United States citizens are taxed on their worldwide income no matter where they go, except for some funny tax breaks available to people that moved to Puerto Rico. It's called Act 60. And, we started getting a lot of crypto dudes coming to us for discovery calls. And they were all living in Puerto Rico. And this whole article is about how this, like, for this one specific guy who's seen as like the scion of this move to Puerto Rico, you got all this crypto money. It's not really working out for him very well because it doesn't seem that he potentially has like the operating ability to like pull off all of the promises that he was giving to other crypto people. Like there's a lot of unfinished projects. He bought a lot of hotels. He bought a lot of manors. At one point, he's bringing this guy that he had a co-investment with in a W hotel down to check it out, and he kidnaps him with a bodyguard because this other shady character, Mr. Lipsky, who by the way was on video giving cocaine to minors in Aspen in 2019.
So upstanding citizens here. We're dealing with real upstanding people.
Yeah, Logan Paul's out in Puerto Rico. They're all just trying to lower their tax rates. Yeah,
right. It's the promise of paying no capital gains, right? Like it's a significant tax benefit, right?
Yeah,
we're talking if you have gains, whether it's from selling your cryptocurrency. Also, I don't believe in this crypto net worth thing because it's so volatile. Like you could be worth 700 million today and literally zero tomorrow. So until it's in dollars, I don't want to hear about your net worth. Sorry, bro.
That kind of goes for regular stocks as well, but more so for crypto due to its insane volatility.
Right, except if you have $1 million in a diversified stock portfolio, never in the history of the stock market has all of your net worth evaporated overnight, whereas we have seen that happen dozens of times with tokens. That's all I'm saying.
Right. And if somebody, which we've also seen is when somebody hacks your crypto wallet and takes it all,
And
you don't even
out.
get a write-off on your taxes.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas if somebody was to steal...
Theft losses could come back in 2026 with tax law changes. We could see them come back.
Yeah, so stay tuned for the
now's a
tax
great
cuts
time
and jobs.
to have your... Yeah. Now's a
Now we're
great
going to
time have your
transition.
crypto net worth wiped out, y'all. Just wait till 2026 so you can write it off.
Hopefully we get some
also,
retroactive stuff for
Sorry,
that, dude.
very important side note. I am in Los Angeles visiting some fam and to see Olivia Rodrigo and the Breeders tonight. But there's a little venue on Ventura Boulevard in Studio City that is called The Write-Off. I think it's a reference to tax. I'm not sure. I don't know. I can't tell. It's like a
I don't know what else
club.
would be a reference
I don't know
to.
what else it could be. I was like, anyway, I thought it was cute. That's all.
Sounds like the owner loved comedy and needed to
like
get
saw
into
the
business
Seinfeld episode or something.
in order to write it off. Right?
The write-off, yeah.
That's why you're trying to generate revenue for your golf Instagram so that you can start writing off every time you go golfing, correct? I got a plan for you. I will pay you.
As you were roasting influencers, I was like, oh no.
What?
I
You're a
was like,
technical
am I-
one. That's a good one.
No, is it a technical one or is it the third kind? Am I just parading around?
Oh, no. This is different. She is showing her. You're trying to do a technical one. You're doing the first one, which is good. Like you're showing people how to golf. This girl's Instagram was like having a big party, having a Chanel bag, tips on how to go shopping. Were some of her tips on Mama and Tata. Which, by the way, she took down the Instagram, which is evidence that it was not productive,
Not lucrative.
potentially the cause of her husband's suicide. So, unless I don't think Nabil is in any dark places because your Instagram is you golfing. I think y'all are. I think you're all squared up.
Make sure y'all check in with Nabil every couple.
I mean, but you could easily do that if on your gram you're like, we never walk, and like you rent like the blitzed out golf cart, you would probably get a lot more followers for like the sassy she's got money like sellout version
Instead
of
I'm
that.
playing these janky Muni courses and just telling it like it is.
Yeah, the people with the most followers, people are always wondering like how do they fund it? And that's how you get followers is like, how is this happening type deal, which makes it a mystery and a fantasy, and you're always looking behind.
Also,
you're
like,
wondering what's behind the scenes.
Social media is so negative, and I think going back to that story and perhaps even relating it to this crypto bro is like it's all about appearances, right? And we are fascinated. Like we're talking about these people. There's long New York Times features on these people because we're fascinated when things go wrong. Like we like to see people that we thought had more than us, that we were jealous of and we were trying to be. We like to see them fail as humans. It's ugly, but it's true.
To sum up that article, essentially he moved to Puerto Rico with $700 million and said, I'm going to fix this place. And then 5-6 years later, a bunch of people are suing him for not completing his projects. There's murals of him painted around Puerto Rico that say "Gringo, go home," like essentially "fuck you." He's doing cocaine a ton, and he's always wearing the same outfits and claiming he's like a Steve Jobs character because Steve Jobs always wore the same clothes because he didn't have time to decide. It's like, bro, you don't have a job. You made money off of crypto like 10 years ago. Like, what are you talking? So.
Yeah.
Walking Burning Man. Burning Man
Yeah.
spiritualism. Bankrupt. Your least favorite as well, I would feel. I would love to see you. That
I
would
go to
be
Burning
a
Man?
great. No, that would be
That should
your
be an
law.
influencer.
If you no. If you lose fantasy, if you lose fantasy,
I'm
you
not
have
playing.
to go to Burning Man.
No.
You have to go in the desert. That would be incredible.
No.
Yeah, that would be it. I want
Okay,
you
fine.
on the next episode. You're going to reveal what my loss would be. What I would have to do.
Okay.
Think about
I'll think
it.
about it. I will think about it. I know exactly what it is. I'm sending you to a Taylor Swift concert.
Oh fuck.
Wait, okay. We have to be
that would be
serious
good.
for a moment again.
Why, what's up?
Because people are getting scammed. Really, really smart people are getting scammed. And the scammers are getting smarter. They are preying on our little smart brains. They are adjusting. They are no longer targeting, the typical scam victim we think of as like a lonely older person waiting by the phone. Like, this is very real. This is happening to our clients. These are very smart people who feel that their livelihoods are threatened. We talked about this last week, but I got to say it again, folks. Do not take cash out. Ever. You never need to take cash out for the IRS, for a court, for a judge, for an FBI agent, for the CIA, for your local government, for anyone. You never, ever, ever need to take cash out to secure anything. So if you find yourself at an ATM and you're deep in the scam and you're on the phone with so-and-so at the IRS or at the FBI and you're punching in your ATM pin, just remember my voice or my face if you're watching on YouTube. Like, AJ says it is a scam. It is always a scam. Walk away. Hang up the phone. Do not take that cash out and give it to someone. You shouldn't have cash with you anyways. Like, have a little bit of cash. Have $100, $200 in your wallet. But, like, people, I feel for you, but we got to stop this. This is crazy. Thoughts?
At least every time you read about a scam, the person did not contact any of their friends or family to like validate what, like, does this sound sus
Yeah.
to you? Like,
Yeah.
that's like, just talk to one other person.
Yep.
Like,
Call one other
and anytime
person.
there is a rush from the person that you're communicating with, if it's like an IRS agent that doesn't want you to talk to anybody else and is in
Yeah.
a big rush, I would also say that's a big part of it. Is like, also if anytime Bitcoin gets involved or cash, like AJ just said,
Or wire.
you're
Wire
fucked.
transfer.
Or a wire like
The only time you should ever send a wire is to yourself to invest money in your own brokerage account that's in your name. Or
Yeah,
you're putting a
with
down
that.
payment on a house and you've triple checked with the escrow company. When you actually send a real wire to an escrow company, like, it is a whole thing. You need to be on the phone. Like, it is hard to do that, right? If they're sending you down to Western Union to send a wire, it's too easy. Like, it's a scam, folks. I'm sorry. Like, I'm just so sick of this happening, and it's the same thing, and I feel so bad for people, and people are so ashamed when it happens to you. But, like, I don't know. Don't take cash out, for the love of God.
Thank you for that PSA, AJ.
Thank
I'm
you.
down with
Thank
that.
you. Thank you for my soapbox. All right, let's wrap it up.
You got
Read
us?
us out. You got it.
Oh shit! I was posting an article for next week. I haven't closed the G sheet.
I got it. Thanks so much for listening. Email us your financial problems at liquidityevent@brooklynfi.com. If you do get scammed and you want to talk about it, I will help you. Leave us a voicemail at memo.fm/liquidityevent. We will play it on the air. You guys have been fabulous. Sorry for the depressing episode. We'll be happier next week. See you then.
No promises. Bye.